Hey, hi guys. So in this video, we are going to cover what is RCU and WCU in Dynamo DB table. Let's try to figure it out what it is. So consider, you know what is kg, centimeter, millimeter, maybe other kind of unit. So all these kinds are kind of a unit. What do we mean by unit is a way of measuring anything. It can be kilogram, meter, as we have already discussed about. So similarly, this WCU and RCU are also a way of measuring the usage in the Dynamo DB. So Dynamo DB is like a service you are is a kind of a Dynamo DB is a database where you are making the query, where you are making the scans, where you are kind of trying to fetch some data from the database. Now how the how your queries, how the data which you are trying to pull measured in DynamoDB, that is called WCU and RCU. These are the two units which are used to measure how much DynamoDB you have used, and based on that the pricing is done, all the billings, all those things are done there. So what is WCU? WCU is the write capacity unit and RCU is the read capacity unit. Now what is write capacity unit? Any query or any call to the DynamoDB where you are making a change. It can be, let's say, write, it can be, let's say, insert, it can be a insert, or it can be a put, or it can be any other change which is actually a write to the DynamoDB table. Now what is RCU? RCU is more about whenever you are trying to fetch some data from the database. It can be a read query, it can be a batch read, it can be a bulk read or batch read query. Okay, it can be a scan query, it can be a kind of a conditional query. So all those things comes under the RCU. Now in DynamoDB we have a limitation at a partition key level. So if we talk about here, each partition in the DynamoDB table is designed to deliver a maximum capacity of 3000 read unit per second and 1K per write. So what do we mean by that is, for every partitioning key which we are using in the DynamoDB, we cannot do more than 3000 read unit per second. And same goes for the write also, but the limit is 1000 units per second. So the point which I'm trying to say is, if you are trying to write more than this much amount of data into the DynamoDB, or trying to read more than 3000 amount of data from the DynamoDB, your calls will be throttled and you will not be allowed to do that within 1 second. And this is not on table, this is per primary key, and this is the hard limit, so this cannot be changed. Okay, this you cannot ask the AWS go ahead and ask for the change of these capacities. It will remain same, and they are per partitioning key, not per table, not per user, not per the account. It's a per partitioning key. Now we also need to understand what do we really mean by 1 WCU, because we have understood till now is, hey, WCU is one of the units which we use to measure the usage into the DynamoDB. But what is one write? What is one WCU? So 1 WCU is equivalent to 1 write operations per second for an item up to 1 KB in size. So what do we mean by that is, let's say here, give me a second. Okay, let's say here you were trying to write 2 KB data, 2 KB data. Okay, now this 2 KB data you are trying to write in a DynamoDB. Now let's try to figure it out how many WCU it will take. Okay, so as we have seen that 1 WCU is equivalent to 1 KB of data per second. Now if you are trying to say more than 1 KB of data in a second, your call is trying to make that happen in within 1 second, then it will consume more than 1 WCU. So if it is a 2 KB, then it will consume 2 WCU. If it is a 1.5 KB, then still it will consume 2 WCU. because that is how the capacity is calculated, as we have seen here. One write unit represents one write operation per second for an item up to 1 KB in size. If it is more than 1 KB, then it is going to take more than 1 WCU. Now, same goes for RCU also. But in RCU, it is little bit different. In RCU, we have two kind of operations. One is strong consistent read operation, and other one is eventually consistent read operation. I will be covering this more in more depth in another video, but for now let's consider that in RCU it's more that, hey, one RCU is equivalent to 4 KB in size per second. So one RCU is equivalent to, we go here, one RCU is equivalent to 4 KB per second. Okay, that is for an item. If you try it, not for an item, it is whatever. For example, let's say you made a query and the data size which you are kind of pulling from the Dynamo DB is more than, it's a 10 KB. So it will take 4 plus 4 plus 2. So how much time it will take? Sorry, how much RCU it will take? It will take 3 RCU to get 10 KB of data. Okay, so this is how we calculate the RCU here. So you can even read more about this, like how it really work. We can play with it around more and more. Okay, now one more thing is that, hey, now you must be thinking that, hey, then how the things are really working out if it does not allow us to query more than 3000 RCUs, as we have already discussed. Okay, so let's say 3 RCUs equivalent to 10 KB. Now what will be 3K RCUs? 3K RCUs, it will be how much? You just multiply and it becomes 10 to the power 4, which is like 10,000 KB. What if you are trying to fetch more data? So there is a limitation here. If you are trying to fetch the data from the same primary key, then there is a limitation here that, hey, you cannot fetch more than 10,000 KB, or 10,000 KB would be equivalent to 10 MB basically. You're not allowed to fetch 10 MB. But if you have more than this amount of data in your that partitioning table, either you will have to wait for another second, you will have to break it down, you will have to chunk it down, you will have to use the pagination. Okay, is there any other way to handle it instead of handling it at the application layer and all those things? I'll try to cover more problems around it in the upcoming videos. This was just an initial information about how the RCU, what is RCU and WCU, how they works and all those things.